So you all saw, I assume, Zuckerberg announced that Meta, that is to say, broadly, Facebook and Instagram, is going unwoke, moving to Texas, getting rid of fact checkers. They're going to have a community notes system. All hail Trump, all hail Musk, give money to Trump's inaugural fund, etc., etc. They have altered the TOS to specifically allow you to call queer people mentally ill. I know that sounds so audacious that it seems like it's an exaggeration, but it is, believe it or not, that. It is against terms of service to call a person mentally ill based on protected characteristics, unless it's because you're gay or trans. It's not a joke. The guidelines, which were updated on Tuesday, still do not allow Facebook, Instagram, or Thread users to insult people based on their mental health, except in this new specific scenario. The guidelines now read, quote, "We do allow allegations of mental illness or abnormality when based on gender or sexual orientation, given political and religious discourse about transgenderism and homosexuality and common non-serious usage of words like weird." They specifically carved out in the terms of service for Facebook, Instagram, and Threads that it is not a violation of terms of service to allege mental illness for those characteristics and only those characteristics. In other uses, it would be a violation of terms of service. What am I even supposed to say about this? This is basically like the logical endpoint to something that's been building for years now, which is that terms of service, you might remember this from Twitter, where like, if you followed TOS and banned everyone who violated it, you would ban like all the right-wing accounts. Twitter admitted this, Facebook admitted this. If you have a terms of service that forbids you from a whole bunch of bigoted behavior, the right just gets purged off the website. Because of course it does. Obviously that's what they believe in. That's their ideology, you know? So what you've had now for years is that social media companies will just not follow their own TOS. Like, they will say it is a violation of terms of service to be abusive or to insult people based on this, that, the other. And then they just won't enforce it. Because if they did enforce it, it would mean a widespread ban of right-wing accounts, politicians, pundits, users, you name it. What this is a codification of that hypocrisy. It's essentially them acknowledging, like, okay, we can't actually do that, so now we have to, like, encode it based, like, directly. So does this literally change anything? Does this lead to a change in the following of the TOS? Maybe a little bit. I don't think it'll change that much in terms of the actual bans. What I do think it represents is an enormous change in the willful complicity these companies. Like, there's a big difference, in my opinion, between allowing bigotry because it would be politically divisive to start banning people for it, and openly saying we now allow bigotry. It is, you'll pardon me, a step in the eliminationist policy, essentially. When you start carving out groups by name. Literally, the word transgenderism is in the TOS. I mean, genuinely, could you imagine this being applied along racial lines? Like, we don't permit hate or bigotry or racial slurs unless you're referring to Jewish people, in which case, literally, like, there's no difference. It's identical. It is literally, if like the AFD takes power and they're like, okay, well, you know, we have to play ball, but if we ban people for anti-Semitism, that's half the country, you know? So what do? We do allow allegations of genetic inferiority or abnormality when based on, yeah, and then they would go like, oh yeah, well, if you're Jewish, but not for anything else. Like, you can't insult a person by calling them dysgenic unless like unless they're from like these targeted groups or something like that. Yeah, the fact the transgenderism is being used, like that word transgenderism, in the document for the TOS, absolutely insane. Yeah, 100%. It's eliminationist. There's no other way to go about it. This is illegal in the EU, to my knowledge. It is, but Twitter has been openly, flagrantly violating EU regulations for years now, and they haven't done anything about it. As a matter of fact, higher-ups in the Trump cabinet have been talking about how they want to prevent foreign interference in the running of our social media companies for a while. Yeah, they've issued warnings, but that's it. There's another section where you can't use gender-based cursing, but the exception is romantic breakup context. Wait, are you telling me that the Meta terms of service says you can't call a lady a bitch unless she dumps you and then you can? What? That sounds insane, but it's not any more insane than what we're looking at right now, I guess. That was their previous TOS change. I'm not even getting into that. I'm talking about, I'm not even getting into that. Divorce posting, straight out of Silicon Valley. Here's the full policy. Oh my God, yap, 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 yap. People sometimes use sex or gender exclusive language when discussing access to spaces often limited by sex or gender, such as access to bathrooms, specific schools, military, law enforcement, teaching roles, health, or support groups. Other times they call for exclusion or use insulting language in the context of discussing political or religious topics, such as when discussing transgender rights, immigration, or homosexuality. Finally, sometimes people curse at a gender in the context of a romantic breakup. Our policies are designed to allow room for these types of speech. That's such a weird thing to add. It's not even a joke. I assumed you were misrepresenting it. That's verbatim. It's all going to get a lot worse, man. Don't you think it's kind of insane that Zuckerberg mentioned they were going to harass other countries over their speech laws? Yeah. I mean, essentially, yeah. Like these, again, we live in an oligarchy now, not a democracy. Zuckerberg is one of those oligarchs. They want to impose the systems that allow them to maximize their shareholder profits on the entire world, and that means, like, they will do anything they can to bring that about. I mean, I don't know. It's just so naked and straightforward. A lot of wacky stuff in here. New Zealand looking rather nice. New Zealand also has Meta, I'm afraid. How long till Blue Sky is bought then? Oh, I don't know. The people who made Blue Sky originally wanted to be some kind of, like, tech crypto thing, right? Or am I misremembering? Blue Sky isn't run by, like, ideological leftists. Everything is subsumed by capital. The only hope we have in the long term is rooted in the fact that fascists on a political level are largely incompetent, and the fact that the, myopic decision-making of shareholders, I mean, oftentimes they act in such self-destructive ways. Our hope is in their incompetence because they control everything. It really wouldn't be a surprise to me if at some point I was nuked off the internet because just the America Act, people who promote pro-Chinese content, parentheses, anything that insults or criticizes America or promotes favorable, charitable statements towards China against America, that's bannable. Speaking out against the social media companies because you're stifling the free speech of those companies. Like, there's a million things, They're going to own all speech if they don't already. I just can't see any way out of this. Well, rejoice, okay? Because basically every dictatorship ever has had complete control over their own media, And, they often can barely hold themselves together. It's such a weirdly grotesque terms of service. They provide so many examples of what they're referring to. They added a line saying you can't compare black people to farm equipment at least. Yeah, that was nice of them. Which TOS is? This is for Meta. So this is for Instagram and Facebook and Threads. So much of this, by the way, is only going to be used to ban anti-Zionists. I guarantee you 100%. There will be Zionists posting about how Palestinians are cockroaches that don't get banned. And there will be people who get banned for saying free Palestine because it's like, oh, you want Palestine free? Well, you're just like Hitler then. And that's actually bannable. The TOS offenses. And none of this apparently applies to trans people, huh? Yeah, the idea of carving out a specific exception for insulting trans and gay people because it's politically commonplace to do so. Jesus, man, you could do the same with a bunch of other absolutely ghoulish, yeah. Assuming leftists can't use social media we have now, what do you think will happen? You can still use social media. We're probably just going to have to use it in a why aren't my eggs $2 kind of sense, Hey, Trump. Hey, Donald. Why do my eggs not cost $2 a dozen? Donald. If they start banning people for inflation posting, then that's the real new world order. They will. Probably not immediately. They already think Zuckerberg is a Jew. I mean, well, that's gonna be the cope for all of the neo-Nazis. Their big sweaty boy Trump gets reelected. Mark Zuckerberg is Jewish? I don't care. I don't give a shit. Their big sweaty boy Donald Trump got brought back in, and they're gonna have to come up with excuses for how he's based. Meanwhile, every single economic trend that they hated continues. And that's what they're going to settle on. It's going to be they did this after 2016 as well. It's all stupid and boring, yeah. Well, sometimes life is stupid and boring.